Welcome on into the Cougar Tracks podcast, powered by KSLSports.com, coming to you from Cedar Hills Golf Course. Mitch Harper here with you. You can subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're available to listen, watch, and check out the show. Just got done with BYU Football Media Day, third annual BYU Football Media Golf Classic here at Cedar Hills Golf Course. And it was a pretty fun day. I had the chance to golf with the KSL radio foursome, myself, Matt Baiamonte, Nate Slack, and also my brother-in-law, Parker Brown. He pretty much carried the team, but I will say I did get some putts in that helped attribute to our 66. Now, I will say the score, the 66 that we ended up finishing with in the scramble. It was, of course, best ball. So you get to go and just play the best ball. So if you have a terrible tee shot, you can go to the second shot where the best shot was. BYU Football Media Relations team who put on this event, and it's a great event. It's one of my favorite events in the year. They announced the awards after the day was done, the rounds were done, and they said the worst score was KSL Radio 66, and I'm standing up thinking, I guess I'll take it on the chin, but I'm pretty sure there were some teams with 72, and there were two teams that ended up with 72s. I think there was one with Jeff Call's team, and then also KSL TV, my guys at KSL 5 TV with Sam Farnsworth and Jeremiah Jensen. They got the 72, but not the greatest score, but it's always a good time seeing all the media and then also the BYU football players and coaches as well here at Cedar Hills Golf Course. But yeah, we ended up with the 66, myself, Matt Baiamonte, Nate Slack, and my brother-in-law, Parker Brown. The best score of the day for some was the group that was in front of us. It was a team of former BYU football players, Jaron Hall, quarterback Baylor Romney, offensive linemen Blake Freeland and Connor Pay. They ended up with a 54. And I got to say, those are some really good golfers. Jaron Hall and Connor Pay, Blake Freeland had the longest drive of the day. But there were some times on par fives, those second shots, they looked like they were in some treacherous situations, yet they end up with a 54, and they had a heck of a day. So all in all, a pretty fun event, golfing with the BYU football program here at Cedar Hills. Afterwards, we had some Costa Vida here in the clubhouse. I ended up with a gift. I won a raffle, earned a bag for some golf shoes. So I came away with some swag, got a gift card to the PGA Superstore. So, again, just a really fun day because this event replaced BYU Football Media Day, which used to take place at the BYU Broadcasting Building. This has now kind of replaced that. And so what happens now is the BYU football coaches, they go on vacation. Between now and pretty much fall camp, they're going to be out and about. Now, Kalani will have Big 12 Football Media Day coming up around July 8th. In Frisco, Texas this year, but now the staff gets to settle in and get some much-needed relaxation before they hunker down and get ready for fall camp coming up at the end of July. But as far as news and notes coming out of this event, there weren't many newsy items, and of course the number one pressing topic that everyone I think wanted to get more intel on the situation was, of course, the status of quarterback Jake Retzloff. He was not here at this event, and really there was no new movement as far as what the status of BYU starting quarterback will be for the 2025 season coming out of this event here at Cedar Hills Golf Course. But so it was pretty much a lot of no comments. Some guys like Parker Kingston addressed, like, how does that impact the chemistry, the rapport between, quarterbacks and receivers. And, he pretty much kind of had a no comment as far as, but just not having it affect their work and getting ready for the season. So it's still kind of to be determined as far as what Jake Retzloff's status is going to be for the upcoming 2025 football season. So no new updates on that front regarding that. But we did get some interesting tidbits with some of the players and coaches as they get ready for the 2025 season. And keep in mind, BYU's coming off a year where they were 11-2 a season ago. They finished 13th in the final AP Top 25 poll. It was one of the best seasons in BYU football history. When you factor in the strength of schedule, being in the Big 12, was a really good football team last season, and this year they're motivated to try to break through and get to the Big 12 championship game this year. And you can tell there's a lot of motivation. There's excitement for that, but they do need that clarity at the quarterback position going forward, and it'd be better to have that clarity sooner rather than later, because the next tentpole event with the media will be coming up in Frisco with the Big 12 Football Media Days on July 8th is when BYU will take center stage. But I had the chance to talk with TJ Woods. I talked with Kelly Papinga. Matt Baiamonte caught up with Kalani Sitake and Jay Hill. So, again, a lot of good content coming out of this, and also got the chance to catch up with the head football coach, Kalani Sitake. But some interesting personnel tidbits. Andrew Gentry, he's going to be ready to go coming up for fall camp, and that's noteworthy because he's the heralded Michigan offensive line transfer. Going to compete most likely, I would expect, at that right tackle position for BYU this year, along with Austin Leausa, who primarily took the first team reps in spring ball while Gentry was recovering from his injury that he suffered last year at Michigan, but a big-bodied athlete. I mean, very talented football player. He was here at the golf event, and he's going to be someone to keep tabs on this year for BYU. And honestly, I look at that starting five potentially for the offensive line. TJ Woods told me he feels very confident. He knows who the top 7 guys are. It's just kind of filling out who's going to play where and what spots. But he kind of knows who his top 7 are. And if I had to kind of project who those guys would be, it includes Waylon Lapuaho, Bruce Mitchell at center. Then you've got Isaiah Jada at left tackle. He enters his second year in the program. You've also got Sonny Mocassini, Austin Leausa, and then you've also got Andrew Gentry as well. And, maybe a wild card in that mix could be, potentially, Kyle Safaricik, this transfer from Southern Utah, or maybe, someone like a Joe Brown who's coming back from an injury he suffered. He's cleared to go, ready to play coming up this fall camp as well. So BYU feels pretty good about their offensive line, but there's some inexperience there. They've got to replace some veteran leaders from last season, like a Caleb Etienne, Connor Pay, so valuable off the field Connor Pay was. And Connor was here at the golf event, as I know, to part of the number 1 team that scored a 54 today. But there's a lot to replace on that offensive line. But I think the talent could be higher than what it was a season ago. And the same could be said, too, for BYU's defensive line. Speaking with Kelly Papinga, I really kind of got deep into the weeds about the defensive end position, and he loves the talent of this group, but he noted that there's a lot of flashes, but they need more consistency, down after down from these players. But they love the talent that they have coming off the edge. And Kelly Papinga told me the leader at defensive end, maybe the guy that's going to take on that leadership mantle from Tyler Batty, will be Logan Latui, the redshirt senior who got an extra year of eligibility due to a season in 2022 where he suffered an injury that limited his availability that year. Logan Latui runs it back for another season, and Coach Papinga told me today that he's the leader of that defensive end room. But they've also got talented guys along with him. Bodie Schoonover, I was talking with Coach K-Pop about Bodie, and he's really kind of reinvented his body to the point where maybe he could play a little bit in the interior, but they like what he could be at that defensive end position, kind of that traditional defensive end. And then you got the OE spot, that outside edge position, where Logan Latui and Tausili Akana could be as well. Tausili Akana, the transfer from Texas, I talked with K-Pop about Akana, and they need him to continue to add some weight. They want to get him ideally, eventually, to around 245, 250, but he has gained some weight since he arrived in Provo from Austin last year. Last year at Texas, he was playing around 210. Right now, he's probably about 230, somewhere in there. If they can get him to 240 for fall, that would be pretty huge for this BYU football team. But you see the moments, the flashes, and even Papinga noted that the talent is there for Tausili Akana. So it's hard to imagine there's not going to be a big role for him coming up this season. But, other players like when you look at the other defensive end positions and the players that are competing there, a Hunter Clegg, there's so many different guys that BYU has. The talent level has been elevated. And I think that's, again, kind of the theme of this entire team in 2025 is that maybe they don't have the top-end, bona fide, clear-cut stars, maybe, preseason, first team, all Big 12 guys. Chase Roberts could be that, I think. Maybe you can make a case maybe for NLJ Martin, but, you're maybe pulling a little bit. Isaiah Glasker, I think, is one of those type of guys. Jack Kelly as well. We didn't see them today. But I think that this is a team where, the depth, each and every position, it's deeper, it's more competitive than it's probably ever been in the Kalani Sitake era, and honestly, probably in the history of the program. Now, I know BYU's had some great teams in the past, but I think that the overall collection of talent that BYU has this year is just, there's more talent across the board, and that's a common thread for many of these position groups. But getting into this personnel with the coaches, it's one of my favorite parts of the job, because you just start to see this start to come together, these position groups. And the trenches are going to play a big role for BYU. And, staying with the defensive ends, they need to have that group locked in and elite. Last year they were a number one defense in the Big 12, in large part because of the talent of Tyler Batty. Yes, he only ended up with 1.5 sacks last year, but, man, he generated so many pressures last season. He was a real tone setter for this program, and they need that again from the defensive line position if they want to be the number one defense again. And they've got the talent to potentially do that because, again, I think the depth overall on defense in the entire team is better than where it was last season. There's a lot of excitement in the interior of the defensive line with Keanu Tanavasa coming over from Utah, but also Justin Kirkland, too, from Oklahoma State. BYU now has legit 300-plus pound guys that are built to play the defensive tackle position. In years past, they've kind of developed and created guys into defensive tackles. They don't need to do that this year. They've got bona fide DTs in the interior, so that's why you're not going to see really many change-ups between defensive end to D-tackle like you saw in years past. They could move over, scoon over Viliami Pahuha to the interior, but I don't think you need it because you've got Tanavasa, you've got Justin Kirkland, you've got John Talmoy-Peyu, Anisi Purcell. That's probably your top four. But then you've also got some young guys in the interior too. And again, they're 300-pound guys. They're big, 6'3", 6'4", a lot of size, a lot of talent in the interior. So that should mesh well for BYU on the defensive front going into this season, which, again, there's only about a month away until fall camp kicks off, and it's away we go with the 2025 football season. Also heard some commentary from Kalani Sitake today here at the Media Day golf event, and Kalani answered some general questions about revenue sharing, and because that's the new wrinkle that's officially in the mix, and also just discussed recruiting as well. Kalani was discussed the Jake Retzlaff situation, but really didn't have anything new to share on that front. So it was nothing different than what we heard back in Orlando at the Big 12 spring business meetings. So it opened the door for other conversations and maybe big picture storylines to be discussed. One thing that I asked Kalani was about, the message that he was trying to send to all the official visitors and recruits that, visited Provo over this past month, because it's well documented. I mean, the amount of talent that was visiting Provo this past month, it was some of the biggest recruiting weekends that BYU's experienced in quite some time. And look, BYU's always hosted some high-profile recruits on official visits, but sometimes you looked at those visits and thought, is that just kind of a token visit because they're an LDS guy and they're just giving BYU the benefit to just say, hey, I'm going to come visit and give you a chance to wine and dine me, but you're not really taking it serious. BYU comes out of this weekend feeling like all the guys that visited campus, they could be, future BYU players and a big part of the future. And, so what was the message that Kalani and his staff were looking to send? And he made it clear that he laid out, resources are there. Everything is there for these players to succeed. You got the conference, you got the access to the playoff, and then you got the culture and the tie-in. He noted that Dave George with the BYU football general manager, and he was here today. he plays a role in maybe discussing, those financials with these recruits. And then Kalani really zeroes in on the culture side, the love and learning, the pillars of what BYU football has been under his watch. He really zeroes in on that with these prospects. But, tomorrow we're going to see a decision from Ryder Lyons. And if you can get a guy like Ryder Lyons, that changes the trajectory of the BYU football program completely. Regardless of what happens this year, BYU football is trending up if you can get someone like a Ryder Lyons, because quarterback is so critical to any college football program, and to get a blue chip 5-star who could go anywhere in the country, that signals your abilities to compete at the highest levels for high-profile recruits. It's a big deal. So if BYU can get him, that would be, I think it'd send a message nationally, which Kalani's program on the recruiting trail, they've quietly put together okay classes, strong, solid classes that Cougar fans following closely know have been much better than the recruiting rankings would suggest. But these are national splash-type prospects, and these are the type of guys BYU needs to get, and Ryder Lyons will make that decision coming up tomorrow. So I asked Kalani about, what was that message, because he can't get into specific names at this juncture. And that's, this is kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but that is something that I would like to see changed. Now that prospects can get paid, it's the revenue sharing era. Maybe there's a loophole where, after they sign, or I don't know maybe how they would handle this, but let coaches kind of discuss recruits, go on the record and discuss a recruit. Like, hey, did you pursue this guy if they didn't end up coming to BYU? Did you pursue them? What happened there? It's always this kind of cloak and dagger, behind the scenes sort of deal, and there's no transparency about what really happened if you lost out on a recruit or if you get a recruit. Maybe just a little bit more of an ability to actually address this, because it's always just this little gray area with recruiting. It's like, they're making big money now. Like, why not be able to discuss this? I know the NBA still has where you can't discuss prospects for, in the draft and whatnot, but that would be something I'd like to see changed maybe in the future. But that wasn't anything that we were discussing with coaches here at Media Day. Some of the players that were in attendance here, current players that were in attendance here at the Golf Media Day event: Chase Roberts, Parker Kingston. I'm really intrigued to see what Parker Kingston is going to do this season for BYU. There's so much talk about Tiger Bachmeier coming in from Stanford, and I think he's going to be a really good player for BYU. You've also got Cody Hagan as well, who's coming back from injuries he's dealt with in the spring. He's going to be a really good football player, a special football player for BYU. But Parker Kingston is someone that's entering his fourth year in the program, or third year in the program, and he's been around this thing, fourth year now at BYU. And can he become a consistent every down guy or at a minimum, someone that is heavily involved with this offense completely? And, the competition to earn a spot and be in that top six. He noted that top six is always kind of the focus when you enter a fall camp. For the wide receivers, getting into Fessie's top six will be critical if you want to have a chance to play, because those first couple of weeks in fall camp really set the tone for who's going to have the ability to play entering a season. And then it really doesn't change unless there's injuries or something drastic in practice. But otherwise, that's going to be what your depth chart is going to look like, and it's going to get established pretty early in fall camp. So the challenge to be in that top six, be interesting to see where Parker Kingston fits into that. But one thing that we do know he's going to factor into is the return game. Punt return, he's going to be there again. And then also the kick return game too. Talking with Kelly Papinga about the return men, and Keelan Marion now being gone, the All-American return man, who's going to step up and replace him. Parker Kingston's an option. Dominique McKenzie's another option. Cody Hagan. Tiger Bachmeier could be in the mix as well. So they feel like they've got options to replace Keelan Marion. And, they even pointed to the scheme that they use when it comes to the return game. Jay Hill's used it at Weber State. Kelly Papinga's used it at Virginia. They feel very confident that they can have success with a lot of different guys, and that not all is lost with Keelan Marion. So we'll see. I mean, Keelan Marion had 2 touchdowns returned last season, or kickoffs returned for a touchdown, one of which being that Utah game, which was huge for BYU to keep that undefeated season alive. The other was against Wyoming. Can they replicate that, with these guys this year? The potential's there. And I think that's another theme coming out of this media day, is that there's a lot of potential with across the board with this roster, but you just need some guys quickly to emerge as every single day, every single week, you can count on them and be reliable, high-level performers for this BYU football team if they want to break through and, eventually get to a Big 12 championship appearance. I noted earlier that Andrew Gentry was here. Tanner Wall was here, BYU football safety. Didn't see any of the other quarterbacks, McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, Bear Bachmeyer, nor did we see Jake Retzlaff, as I noted earlier. So, but again, pretty fun event to be here. I was trying to catch up with Harvey Young, a BYU running backs coach, but I didn't get the chance to catch up with him because that's a position that I think has got is being slept on quite a bit, this BYU football running back unit. It's going to be a really good one for the Cougars with LJ Martin, Sione Moa at the top of that group. And then you got Pokai Hunga and Jovesa Damuni. Should be a really talented running back unit for BYU this season. But I can't wait, man. I'm ready for some BYU football coming out of this event. I mean, I'm always, chomping at the bit, getting ready for a season. We're down to 68 days until kickoff between BYU and Portland State coming up on August 30th. It's going to be here before we know it, and you'll hear all the games, of course, on KSL News Radio. That game's going to be a 6 o'clock kick on ESPN+, and we'll have you covered. I think pregame coverage will begin that day at noon with Cougar Sports Saturday, so it's going to be a loaded Saturday, and it will be here before we know it. But then we got Big 12 Media Day, we've got fall camp, and then it's the season, and away we go with another year of Cougar football. So, again, it was a really fun event. I always enjoy these sort of events here at Cedar Hills. Always a good event, and I'm looking forward to this upcoming year of Cougar football. I think the big question now is just kind of getting some clarity and some resolution on Jake Retzlaff's status for this 2025 season, but no clear answers as of now coming out of this Media Day golf event. And if you're new to this program, Cougar Tracks, make sure to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a ton. Give a like button on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, YouTube. We're available anywhere and everywhere. The KSL Sports app, KSL News Radio app. You can get us in so many different platforms, and it's always available at KSLSports.com. I will talk to you next time here on the Cougar Tracks podcast, and it's powered by KSLSports.com.